The security footage didn't lie. Megan Wright stared at her laptop screen, hands trembling as she watched her husband Jason press her boss Alexandra against the glass desk in her corner office. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., exactly when Jason had texted he was working late at the construction site, the same night Megan had been home with severe food poisoning, clutching the toilet bowl while he was supposedly laying concrete for the Conrad project. But that wasn't even the worst part. Behind them, mounted on Alexandra's wall like a trophy, was Megan's prototype, her revolutionary water purification system that she had spent 3 years perfecting. The same invention Alexandra had fired her for stealing company resources to create just 6 hours earlier. The same invention that was about to make Alexandra millions. Megan closed the laptop and leaned back in the driver's seat of her car, parked across from Pinnacle Industries, where she used to work, where she believed she had a future. Rain pounded against her windshield like bullets, and for the first time in her 32 years, she understood what people meant when they said they saw red. They had taken everything, her job, her husband, her life's work, but they'd made one crucial mistake they didn't know that she knew. 6 hours earlier, Megan walked into Alexandra's corner office thinking she was getting a promotion. Her quarterly reviews had been excellent, and the Conrad project had just landed the company its biggest contract in history because of her designs. More importantly, Alexandra had been dropping hints about partnership for weeks. "Sit down, Megan," Alexandra said without looking up from her computer. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun she wore when she meant business. The morning sun streaming through her floor-to-ceiling windows cast sharp shadows across her perfect features. Megan smoothed her skirt and sat in the leather chair across from Alexandra's mahogany desk, the same desk where she'd presented her water purification breakthrough just 3 months ago. The same desk where Alexandra had shaken her hand and promised her a bright future. "I'm afraid we have to let you go," Alexandra said, finally meeting Megan's eyes. The words hit like a physical blow. "What?" "Effective immediately." She slid a manila envelope across the desk. "Your final paycheck in severance." And Megan's mouth went dry. "Alexandra, I don't understand. My performance. The Conrad project just landed us the biggest contract in company history because of your designs." Alexandra finished for her. "That's exactly the problem." She leaned back in her chair, and Megan caught something cold in her green eyes that she'd never seen before. "We've discovered you've been using company time and resources for personal projects." "Personal projects?" Megan's voice cracked. "You mean the water purification system? The one I developed here for the company? The one you developed using our equipment, our lab, our electricity?" Alexandra opened a file folder. "According to our legal team, any invention created using company resources belongs to Pinnacle Industries. Yet you filed the patent under your own name." The room started spinning. "Because you told me to. You said it would be easier to transfer it to the company later." "I have no record of that conversation." Alexandra's smile was razor thin. "And unfortunately, without documentation, it's your word against mine." Megan stared at her, feeling like she was drowning. "This is insane. You know I created that system. You were there for every test, every modification. You celebrated with me when we finally got the filtration rate to 9.7%. Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." Megan stood on shaking legs. "Alexandra, please. This job is everything to me. And that invention, it could help millions of people get clean water. We talked about taking it global. Remember helping communities in developing countries." 10 minutes. "Megan." Alexandra had already returned to her computer. Megan walked out of the office in a daze, past cubicles where her coworkers avoided eye contact, past the lab where she'd spent countless nights perfecting her formulas, past the conference room where she'd given presentations that earned the company millions. Security guard David Wilson, who she'd chatted with every morning for 4 years, couldn't look at her as he walked her to her car. "I'm sorry, Megan," he whispered as they reached the parking garage. "This doesn't feel right." None. Megan drove home to their small house on Willow Lane, her mind reeling. How was she going to tell Jason? They just bought this place 7 months ago. stretching their budget thin because they believed her promotion was coming. The promotion Alexandra had hinted at for weeks. The house was empty when she got there. Jason's construction crew started early, so he'd already left for the day. She sat at their kitchen table, staring at the severance check. 3 months' pay enough to cover the mortgage while she looked for another job, but not much else. She called Jason's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me. Something terrible happened at work. Call me when you get this. I love you." Then she called her best friend, Zoe Williams. "They fired you." Zoe's voice was sharp with disbelief. "For what?" "They're claiming I stole company resources to develop my water system. Alexandra's saying she never gave me permission to work on it." "That's insane. You've been talking about that project for months. I remember you telling me how supportive she was." "I know." Megan pressed her fingers against her temples, feeling a headache building. "Zoe, what if I can't find another job? What if word gets out that I was fired for theft? My reputation will be ruined." "Hey, breathe. We'll figure this out. Do you have any documentation, emails, texts, anything that proves she approved the project?" Megan thought about it. "Maybe I'll have to check my personal email. Most of our conversations were in person, but there might be something." "Good. Start there, Dan. And Megan, don't sign anything they gave you until you talk to a lawyer." After they hung up, Megan spent the afternoon going through her emails, looking for any proof that Alexandra had supported her project. She found a few messages, but nothing definitive, mostly just Alexandra asking for updates and scheduling lab time. Jason didn't call back. At 6:00 p.m., she tried him again. Voicemail. At 8:00 p.m., she texted, "Where are you? I really need to talk." No response. By 10:00 p.m., she was worried. Jason always answered his phone, especially when she called multiple times. She tried calling his foreman, Keith. "Hey, Mrs. Wright." Jason left the site around noon, said he had some errands to run. Errands for 10 hours. She called his brother Michael. "Haven't seen him today." "Megan, everything okay?" She was about to call the hospitals when she heard his truck in the driveway. Relief flooded through her as she heard his key in the lock. "Jason, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day." He walked into the kitchen, and Megan immediately knew something was wrong. His dark hair was messed up, his shirt wrinkled. He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Sorry, my phone died. Long day." "Where were you?" Keith said. "You left at noon." "Had to pick up some supplies. Ran into traffic." He opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. "What did you want to talk about?" She told him about getting fired, about Alexandra's accusations, about the patent dispute. He listened without saying much, just nodding and drinking his beer. "That sucks," he said when she finished. "But maybe it's for the best. You've been working too much lately." Megan stared at him. "For the best, Jason. This was my dream job, and they're stealing my invention." "You'll find something else." He kissed her forehead, but it felt cold, distant, tired, going to bed. He left her sitting alone in the kitchen, feeling more isolated than she'd ever felt in her life. The next morning, Jason left early again. No goodbye kiss, no coffee together, like usual. Just the sound of his truck pulling away while she was still in bed, staring at the ceiling. Megan spent the day updating her resume and searching job boards, but her heart wasn't in it. Every few minutes, her mind drifted back to Alexandra's cold smile and Jason's strange behavior. Around noon, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Megan Wright?" "Yes, this is Detective Harris with the Metro Police. I'm calling about a break-in at Pinnacle Industries last night. Your name came up as someone who might have information." Her blood turned to ice. "A break-in? Someone accessed the building after hours and tampered with several computers in the research department. Security footage shows the person knew the building layout well. Since you were recently terminated, we need to ask you a few questions." "You think I broke in, Detective? I was home all night. My husband can vouch for me." "We'll need to speak with both of you. Can you come down to the station this afternoon?" After she hung up, Megan called Jason immediately. For once, he answered. "They think I broke into Pinnacle," she said without preamble. Silence. Jason, that's crazy. Why would they think that? Because I was just fired and someone who knew the building broke in last night. I need you to tell them I was home. Another pause. Of course, yeah, you were home. Something in his tone made her stomach clench. Jason, I was home, right? You came home around 10:30. We talked about my job. Then we went to bed, right? Yeah, that's what happened. But he sounded uncertain, like he was trying to remember. At the police station, Detective Harris was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with graying hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She interviewed them separately. When it was Megan's turn, she got straight to the point. Where were you between 11:00 p.m. and 2:00 a.m. last night? At home in bed. Can anyone verify that my husband, we went to bed together around 11 p.m. She made a note. Your husband says he went to bed around 11 p.m., but he's not sure what time you came to bed. Says he was very tired and fell asleep quickly. Megan's heart stopped. What? He also mentioned you were upset about being fired. Said you felt the company had stolen your work. She felt like the walls were closing in. Detective, I didn't break into that building. I would never. The security footage is interesting, Harris continued. The person was wearing a hood, so we can't see their face, but they're about your height and build. And they went straight to the research lab where your project was housed. What did they take? That's what's strange. Nothing was taken, but several computers were accessed and files were copied. Specifically, some files related to water purification technology. Megan left the police station feeling sick. Why had Jason thrown her under the bus? Why couldn't he remember if she was in bed when she got home? He was waiting in the kitchen with a guilty expression. Megan, I'm sorry. I was just confused. I was really tired last night, and when she asked me those questions, I second-guessed myself. You second-guessed whether your wife was in bed next to you. I take those sleeping pills sometimes. You know that. Everything gets fuzzy. She studied his face. Jason had never taken sleeping pills in the 5 years they'd been married. What sleeping pills? The ones Dr. Marshall prescribed for my back pain? They make me drowsy. Another lie. Jason's back was fine. He'd never seen Dr. Marshall for anything except his annual physical. Jason, what's going on? You're acting so strange. He pulled her into his arms, and she caught a whiff of a familiar perfume on his shirt. Something like amber and jasmine expensive. Nothing like the light floral scent she used, the exact perfume Alexandra wore. Nothing's going on. I'm just stressed about work. The Conrad project is behind schedule, and the client's breathing down our necks. He kissed the top of her head. I'm sorry I wasn't more supportive yesterday. Losing your job is huge, and I should have been there for you. Megan wanted to believe him, but something felt wrong. That night, she lay awake beside him. When she was sure he was asleep, she carefully got up and went to the bathroom. His phone was charging on the nightstand. She'd never snooped through Jason's phone before, but the perfume smell and his strange behavior had planted a seed of doubt. His phone was password protected. She tried his birthday, then hers, then their anniversary. Nothing. Then, on an impulse that made her stomach churn, she tried Alexandra's birthday. She knew it because the whole office celebrated it every year with catered lunch and champagne. The phone unlocked. Her hands were shaking as she scrolled through his messages. Most were work-related or conversations with his brother, but then she found a thread that made her blood freeze. Alexandra, can't wait to see you tonight. Same place Jason. Megan's working late again. Alexandra, perfect. I have something special planned. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. She scrolled up, finding weeks of messages between them. Flirty texts, plans to meet, intimate photos that made her want to throw up. But the worst message was from yesterday, just hours after she'd been fired. Jason, it's done, Shurin. She's gone. Now we can move forward with our plans. Alexandra, are you sure this will work, Jason? Trust me. By the time the patent goes through, she'll have no legal standing. The invention will belong to Pinnacle, and I'll make sure you get your cut. Alexandra, what about the break-in? Won't that look suspicious, Jason? It's perfect cover. Makes it look like she was desperate enough to steal her own work back. Reinforces our narrative that she's unstable. Megan dropped the phone, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold it. They had planned this. All of it. The firing, the break-in, everything. Jason stirred in bed. Megan, you okay? She quickly put his phone back and slipped into bed beside him. Just had to use the bathroom. He rolled over and put his arm around her, and she had to bite her tongue to keep from screaming. This man she'd loved and trusted for 5 years had betrayed her in the worst possible way, but she couldn't let him know that she knew. Not yet. She needed a plan. The next morning, Megan waited until Jason left for work, then drove to a coffee shop across town where she could think clearly. She ordered a large coffee and found a corner table where she could spread out her laptop and notes. First, she needed to understand exactly what she was dealing with. She made a list of everything she knew. 1, Alexandra and Jason were having an affair. 2, they had planned her firing together. 3, Alexandra was stealing her patent. 4, someone had broken into Pinnacle and accessed her files. 5, the police suspected her of the break-in. The break-in bothered her the most. If Alexandra already had access to her work, why would someone need to break in? She pulled up the patent database on her laptop and searched for her water purification system. Her heart sank when she found it. The patent application had been filed 3 days ago under Alexandra's name, but something was wrong with the technical specifications. Several key components were missing or incorrectly described. The filtration rate was listed as 87% instead of the 99.7% she'd achieved. Someone had filed a patent for an incomplete version of her invention. She called her friend Anthony Chen, who worked as a patent attorney downtown. Megan, good to hear from you. Zoe told me about what happened at Pinnacle. I'm so sorry. Anthony, I need your help. Someone filed a patent for my invention, but they got the specifications wrong. What does that mean legally? Well, if they filed for an incomplete or incorrect version, and you can prove you developed the complete version first, you might have grounds to challenge it. Do you have documentation of your work? Some, but most of my research was done at Pinnacle. That's a problem, but if you can prove you had the complete version before they filed their incomplete one, you might have a case. Do you have any prototypes, test results, anything that shows the correct specifications? Megan thought about it. I have a working prototype at home. I built it in my garage using my own materials. That's good, very good. When did you build it? 5 months ago. I have photos and video of the testing process. Even better. Megan, I think you might have a strong case here, but you'll need to move fast. Patent disputes can drag on for years if you don't act quickly. After she hung up with Anthony, Megan drove home and went straight to the garage. Her prototype was still there, covered by a tarp in the corner. She pulled off the cover and stared at her creation, a sleek metal cylinder about the size of a water heater, connected to a series of filters and monitoring equipment. This machine could purify contaminated water from any source and make it safe to drink. It could help millions of people in developing countries, disaster zones anywhere clean water was scarce, and Alexandra was trying to steal it. She spent the afternoon documenting everything. She took photos from every angle, recorded video of the machine in operation, and gathered all her research notes and test results. Then she had an idea that made her pulse quicken. If Alexandra had filed an incomplete patent, she would need the missing specifications to make the system actually work. The break-in at Pinnacle wasn't about stealing files, it was about finding the complete technical data that Megan had never fully documented in the company computers, which meant they still didn't have everything they needed. She grabbed her laptop and started going through her personal files. Sure enough, the most crucial component, the proprietary filter membrane she'd developed, was only documented in her personal notes. The formula was stored on an encrypted drive that she kept at home. Alexandra thought she was so clever, but she'd stolen an incomplete invention. Megan's phone buzzed with a text from Jason. Jason, working late again tonight. Don't wait up. She stared at the message. feeling a cold fury settle in her chest. He was probably with Alexandra right now, trying to figure out why their stolen patent wasn't working. Perfect. So, that evening, Megan drove to Pinnacle Industries and parked across the street. Alexandra's BMW was still in the executive parking lot, along with Jason's pickup truck. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. She called Zoe. I need a favor, and you're going to think I'm crazy. Try me. I need you to help me break into my old office. Silence. Megan, what the hell? Hear me out. Alexandra stole my invention, but she only got part of it. She's going to try to reverse engineer the missing pieces, but I can plant false information that will sabotage her efforts. This sounds like a terrible idea. She destroyed my career, and she's sleeping with my husband. I'm not going to just roll over and let her win. Another pause. What do you need me to do? Zoe worked as a freelance graphic designer, but she'd been a computer science major in college. More importantly, she was the only person Megan trusted completely. I need you to help me access the company network remotely. I still have my login credentials. They probably haven't deactivated them yet. And then what? I'm going to upload modified technical specifications to my project files. When Alexandra tries to build the complete system, it won't work. The filtration rate will be terrible, and she'll waste months trying to figure out what's wrong. Megan, this is corporate sabotage. You could go to prison only if I get caught. And I won't get caught because I'm not actually breaking in. I'm just accessing files that I created. It took her an hour to convince Zoe, but finally she agreed to help. They met at Zoe's apartment, and she set up a secure connection to Pinnacle's network. Your credentials still work, she said, typing rapidly. They really should have deactivated these immediately. Alexandra's not as smart as she thinks she is. Megan spent the next 2 hours carefully modifying her technical documentation. She changed key measurements, altered chemical formulas, and introduced subtle errors that would make the system fail. To anyone who didn't know the correct specifications, the changes would look like minor variations or typos. This is actually brilliant, Zoe said, watching her work. It'll take them months to figure out what's wrong. And by then, you'll have your patent challenge filed. Exactly. And while they're wasting time and money trying to make their stolen version work, I'll be building a case to prove the invention is mine. They finished around midnight. As Megan drove home, she felt something she hadn't experienced in days' hope. Jason's truck was in the driveway when she got there. She found him in the kitchen eating leftover pizza and scrolling through his phone. Hey, he said without looking up. How was your day? Productive. I'm starting to put together a legal challenge to get my patent back. His head snapped up. A legal challenge. Anthony thinks I have a good case. Apparently, whoever filed the patent got some of the specifications wrong. She watched his face carefully. A muscle in his jaw twitched. That's great, honey. I hope it works out. Me too. It might take a while, but I'm confident I can prove the invention is mine. Jason nodded, but she could see the wheels turning in his head. He was probably already planning to text Alexandra about this conversation. I'm exhausted, Megan said, stretching dramatically. I think I'll take a hot bath and go to bed early. Good idea. You've been under a lot of stress. She kissed his cheek. Good night to Jason. In the bathroom, she ran the water and added some lavender bath salts. But instead of getting in the tub, she crept back to the bedroom and listened at the door. She could hear Jason's voice, low and urgent, talking on the phone. She's filing a legal challenge. No, I don't know what evidence she has. She said the patent specifications were wrong. Alexandra, we need to talk. Megan smiled grimly and went back to the bathroom. Phase 1 was complete. The next day, Megan met with Anthony at his office to file a formal patent challenge. She brought all her documentation, including photos and videos of her working prototype. This is impressive, Megan, Anthony said, flipping through her files. But we're still missing something crucial. We need to prove that you developed this technology independent of Pinnacle's resources. But I didn't. Not entirely, and I used their lab for testing. That's going to be a problem. Alexandra could argue that the company owns any intellectual property developed using their resources. Megan thought for a moment. What if I could prove that the most critical component, the filter membrane, was developed in my home garage, using my own materials? That would help, but we'd need solid documentation. She pulled out her personal journal. I keep detailed notes of all my work, including dates, materials, and results. The membrane formula was something I'd been working on since graduate school, long before I joined Pinnacle. Anthony flipped through the journal, his eyebrows rising. This is good, Megan, really good. But we'll need more. Do you have any witnesses who saw you working on this at home? My husband, she said bitterly. But he's not exactly a reliable witness right now. What about friends, neighbors? Anyone who could testify that you were working on this project at home? Megan thought about it. Zoe came over a few times while I was working in the garage, and my neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, used to bring me lemonade. She was curious about what I was building. Perfect. We'll need statements from both of them. As they continued discussing strategy, Megan's phone buzzed with a text from Jason. Jason, we need to talk. Coming home early. She showed the message to Anthony. That's my husband. I think he's getting nervous. Good, let him sweat. But Megan, be careful. Don't reveal what you know yet. We need to build our case first. She nodded. I know. I'm playing the long game here. When Megan got home, Jason was already there, pacing in the living room. He looked terrible, pale, and anxious. Hey, she said casually. You're home early. Megan, we need to talk about this patent challenge. I think you're making a mistake. She set her bag down slowly. A mistake, how so? Fighting Pinnacle is a bad idea. They have deep pockets and expensive lawyers. They'll drag this out until you're bankrupt. So I should just let them steal my invention. The work I've poured my heart and soul into for 3 years. Jason ran a hand through his hair. I'm just saying, maybe there's another way. Maybe you could negotiate with them. Get some kind of licensing fee. I tried that. Alexandra fired me instead. Megan watched him carefully. Why are you so concerned about this? Jason, I thought you'd be on my side. I am on your side. I just don't want to see you get hurt. Too late for that, she muttered. What? Nothing. She headed for the kitchen. I'm going to make dinner. Pasta. Okay? Megan, wait. He grabbed her arm. There's something else. I've been thinking. Maybe we should take a break. Get some space from each other. She froze. A break. Just temporarily. With everything that's happened, your job, this patent thing, we're both stressed out. Maybe some time apart would be good for us. The audacity of it almost made her laugh. He was trying to leave her for Alexandra, and he wanted her to think it was her idea. Where would you go, she asked, keeping her voice neutral. I could stay at Michael's for a while. And how long is a while? He shrugged. A few weeks until things settled down. Until the patent issue was resolved, she thought, until he and Alexandra figured out how to make the water purification system work. If that's what you want, she said quietly. Relief flooded his face. You understand, right? This isn't about us. It's just temporary. I understand perfectly. More than you know. Turn. Jason packed a bag that night and left for his brother's house. As soon as his truck pulled out of the driveway, Megan called Zoe. He's gone. Left for his brother's. Did you confront him? No, he doesn't know that I know. He thinks he's being clever, creating space between us while he figures out how to fix the patent problem with Alexandra. So what's your next move? Megan took a deep breath. I need to find out more about what they're planning, and I need help. What kind of help? The professional kind. Do you know any good private investigators? Zoe was quiet for a moment. Actually, I do. My cousin used one during her divorce. Guy named White Marcus Thompson. Former cop. He's good. Can you get me his number? Megan, are you sure about this? It's getting serious. They destroyed my career and are trying to steal my life's work. It's already serious. After Zoe sent her Marcus's contact information, Megan made the call. He agreed to meet her the next morning at a diner downtown. Marcus Thompson was a grizzled man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. He listened without interrupting as Megan explained the situation. "So you want me to follow your husband and his girlfriend, get evidence of the affair?" "That's part of it," Megan said, "but I'm more interested in their business dealings. I need to know what they're planning with my invention." Marcus nodded. "Corporate espionage, that's going to cost you." "How much?" He quoted a figure that made her wince, almost half of her severance pay. "I can give you a week at that rate. Daily reports, photos, recordings if I can get them legally." Megan pushed her coffee cup aside. "Do it." Over the next few days, Megan tried to maintain a normal routine. She applied for jobs, met with Anthony to refine their patent challenge, and exchanged civil texts with Jason. All the while, Marcus was sending her regular updates. Day one, Jason spent 3 hours at Alexandra's luxury condo before heading to work. Later, they met for lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown. Day two, Alexandra met with a patent lawyer, then with executives from a venture capital firm called Summit Partners. Day three, Jason and Alexandra toured a manufacturing facility outside the city. Based on the company's website, they specialized in water treatment equipment. On day four, Marcus hit the jackpot. He sent Megan a text asking to meet urgently. When she arrived at the diner, he slid a manila envelope across the table. "I found something interesting. They've set up a shell company called Tributech Solutions, registered 4 weeks ago, just before you were fired." Megan opened the envelope and flipped through the documents. Tributech Solutions, Water Treatment Technologies. Board of Directors, Alexandra Richards, CEO. Jason Taylor, Chief Operations Officer. Her stomach twisted. Jason had never mentioned any of this. "There's more," Marcus said. "Tributech just received preliminary funding from Summit Partners. $50 million, contingent on proving the technology works." $50 million. The number made her head spin. "According to these documents, your husband has a 30% stake in the company. That's $15 million if the deal goes through." Megan stared at the papers. $15 million. No wonder Jason had been willing to destroy their marriage. "There's one more thing you should see," Marcus said, pulling out his phone. He played a video that appeared to be taken through a restaurant window. Alexandra and Jason were sitting at a corner table, heads close together. "The audio's not great, but I enhanced it as much as I could," Marcus explained. Megan listened as her husband's voice came through the speaker. "Can't get the filtration rate above 88%. The investors are expecting 99%, like we promised." Alexandra's voice tense. "We need that membrane formula. Are you sure she doesn't have it written down somewhere at home?" "I've looked everywhere. She must have it on her personal drive or in her head." "Then we need to get it from her, convince her to help us." "How she already knows something's wrong. She's filing a patent challenge." Alexandra's laugh was cold. "Everyone has their price. Jason, figure out what hers is." The video ended, and Megan sat back, her mind racing. "They're desperate," she said. "They have an incomplete invention, and they've promised investors something they can't deliver." Marcus nodded. "Looks that way. What do you want to do now?" A plan was forming in Megan's mind. A way to not just protect her invention, but to expose Alexandra and Jason's scheme. "I need to set a trap," she said, "and I need your help to do it." The cold fury that had been building inside her crystallized into something harder, sharper. They thought they knew what she was capable of. They were about to find out how wrong they were. As Megan sat in the diner outlining her plan to Marcus, a text from Jason lit up her phone. "Jason, need to talk. Coming by tomorrow. Have a proposition for you." She showed the message to Marcus, a grim smile forming on her lips. "Perfect timing," she said. "Let the game begin." Jason arrived at exactly 10 a.m. the next morning, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally confident posture was replaced by a nervous energy that had him fidgeting with his car keys as he stood in the entryway of what used to be their home. "Thanks for seeing me," he said, stepping inside. "You look good." Megan had prepared for this meeting carefully. She wore a simple blue dress that he'd always liked, her hair loose around her shoulders. Her laptop was open on the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of notes and diagrams, all carefully staged to look like she was still working on her patent challenge. "Coffee," she offered, the perfect picture of civility. "Sure, black." She poured him a cup, using the mug she'd bought him for their anniversary, the one with "World's Best Husband" printed on it, a subtle reminder of what he was throwing away. "So," she said, sitting across from him at the kitchen table, "you had a proposition." Jason sipped his coffee, wincing slightly as the hot liquid touched his lips. "I've been thinking about your situation with Pinnacle, the patent dispute." "My situation?" She raised an eyebrow. "You mean the fact that my boss stole my invention and fired me?" "It's complicated, Megan. Legally speaking, they have a strong case that the technology belongs to them." "Is that what your girlfriend told you?" The color drained from Jason's face. "What are you talking about?" Megan kept her expression neutral, despite the satisfaction she felt watching him squirm. "Let's not insult each other's intelligence. Jason, I know about you and Alexandra." He set his mug down, coffee sloshing over the rim. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." She didn't want to reveal her full hand yet. "But that's not why you're here, is it? You mentioned a proposition." Jason recovered quickly, shifting into the charming negotiator she knew so well from his business dealings. "Look, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but we can all win here. Megan, I'm listening. Alexandra and I have started a new company, Tribute Tech Solutions. We've secured preliminary funding to develop and market the water purification system." He leaned forward, eyes brightening with the practiced enthusiasm he always showed when pitching a deal. $50 million, Megan, with more to come if we meet performance benchmarks." "Congratulations," she said flatly. "What does this have to do with me?" "We want you to join us as Chief Technology Officer, 20% equity stake, plus a $300,000 annual salary." The offer was almost laughable. They were offering her a fraction of what they were stealing, hoping she'd be desperate enough to accept. "Let me get this straight," she said slowly. "You want me to help you and Alexandra profit from my invention, the same invention she fired me for creating, the same invention she falsely claimed belongs to Pinnacle. It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me, Jason, because it seems pretty straightforward from where I'm sitting." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in the gesture. "The technology has potential, Megan, huge potential, but we need your expertise to make it work properly. Because you can't get the filtration rate above 88%, she said, watching his eyes widen in surprise. "The membrane formula is wrong in the patent application, isn't it?" "How did you—" He caught himself. "Look, we can argue about who created what, or we can focus on saving lives. Isn't that what you always wanted? To get this technology to people who need clean water." It was a low blow, using her dreams against her. Typical Jason, finding her pressure points and pressing hard. "And all I have to do is give you the correct membrane formula and drop my patent challenge. It's a win-win. Megan, you get recognition as CTO, a great salary, equity in a promising startup. The technology reaches people who need it. Everyone benefits. Everyone except justice," she said quietly. Jason's face hardened slightly. "Don't be naive. This is business. Alexandra has connections I can only dream of. Summit Partners doesn't invest in just anyone. This is your chance to be part of something huge. And if I refuse, then we'll continue developing without you. It might take longer, but we'll get there. Meanwhile, you'll be burning through your savings on a legal challenge you can't win." He shrugged. "And for what pride?" Megan pretended to consider his words, letting the silence stretch until he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "I need time to think about it," she said finally. Relief crossed his face. He'd expected an outright rejection. Of course, take all the time you need. He pulled a business card from his wallet and slid it across the table. That's my new contact information. Call me when you have made a decision. The card was glossy black with silver lettering. Jason Taylor, Chief Operations Officer, Tributech Solutions. It looked expensive. One more thing, she said as he stood to leave. How long have you and Alexandra been planning this? His hesitation was answer enough. It's not what you think. Megan, things just happened. Things don't just happen. Jason, people make choices. He had the decency to look ashamed. At least, I never meant to hurt you. And yet, she said, here we are. After he left, Megan sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at his business card. Then she picked up her phone and dialed Marcus. He made contact, she said when the private investigator answered. Offered me a job at their new company. 20% equity. That's actually generous, Marcus replied. They must be desperate. They are, and I need to find out just how desperate. I want you to dig deeper into Tributech and Summit Partners. Find out everything you can about this deal. On it, anything else? Megan thought for a moment. Yes, I think Alexandra might have done this before. Look into her previous employers, any projects she worked on. I want to know if there's a pattern. 3 days later, Megan met Marcus at a quiet bar on the edge of town. She'd spent the intervening time methodically documenting every aspect of her invention, making backup copies of all her research, and meeting with Anthony to strengthen her patent challenge. Marcus slid into the booth across from her, placing a thick folder on the table between them. You were right, he said without preamble. Alexandra Richards has a history. He opened the folder and spread out several documents. Before Pinnacle, she worked at Novatech Industries, and before that, Hydro Solutions. At both companies, she was involved in patent disputes with former employees. Megan scanned the paperwork. Both cases were settled confidentially. Yes, but I managed to track down one of the inventors. Marcus pushed forward a photograph of a middle-aged man with tired eyes. Robert Jackson. He developed a water filtration system for agricultural use at Hydro Solutions 5 years ago. Alexander was his supervisor. Sound familiar? What happened? According to Jackson, she gradually took credit for his work, then pushed him out of the company when the technology was ready for patenting. He tried to fight it, but they buried him in legal paperwork until he ran out of money. Settled for a fraction of what the technology was worth. Megan felt a chill run down her spine. She's done this before, multiple times. It gets better. Marcus pulled out more papers. Summit Partners has invested in Alexandra's innovations twice before. Same pattern, promising technology. Disputed ownership, big investment, original inventor, shut out. They must know what she's doing. Or they don't care as long as they make money. Marcus tapped a document. Summit has a reputation for aggressive returns. They're not exactly concerned with ethics as long as the legal I's are dotted. Megan sat back, processing this information. So Alexandra finds promising inventors, steals their work, and sells it to Summit Partners. And now Jason's helping her. Speaking of your husband, Marcus continued, I found something interesting about him too. He pulled out a bank statement. He opened a new account 3 months ago. The day after, Alexandra transferred $100,000 into it. 3 months ago, Megan's mind raced back. That's when I first showed her the working prototype with the 99.7% filtration rate. She was planning this from the beginning, and she bought your husband's cooperation. The betrayal cut deeper than Megan had imagined. Not just an affair, but a calculated conspiracy that had been in motion for months while she worked tirelessly on her invention. There's one more thing you should see. Marcus pulled out a document with the Summit Partners letterhead. This is the term sheet for the Tributech investment. $50 million contingent on a successful demonstration of the technology to their technical committee. The demonstration is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks. Megan leaned forward, scanning the document. They have to demonstrate 99% filtration efficiency to get the money, but they can't do that without my membrane formula, which is why they're so desperate to get you on board. Marcus gathered the documents back into the folder. What's your next move? Megan's mind was already racing ahead, formulating a plan. I need to speak with Robert Jackson, and I need to contact Summit Partners. Damn. Robert Jackson agreed to meet Megan at a quiet cafe the next day. He was a slight man with prematurely gray hair and nervous hands that constantly adjusted his glasses. I almost didn't come, he said after they'd ordered coffee. Talking about Alexandra brings back bad memories. I understand, Megan said gently, but I need to know what happened, how she took your invention. Robert sighed, his shoulders slumping. It was subtle at first, taking credit in meetings, suggesting improvements that were already part of my design. I didn't mind initially she was my boss, and I thought we were collaborating. When did you realize what was happening? Too late. He stirred his coffee absently. By the time I understood she was positioning herself as the primary inventor, she'd already convinced upper management that the technology was her brainchild. When I protested, I was let go for performance issues. And you fought it. I tried. A bitter smile crossed his face. Filed a patent challenge, hired a lawyer, but Hydro Solutions had deep pockets and a legal team on retainer. I was one person with limited savings. After 6 months, I couldn't afford to continue. I settled for $50,000 and signed an NDA. The technology you developed, what happened to it? Alexandra formed a new company with Hydro's blessing, licensed the technology and sold it to Summit Partners for millions. He shook his head. Last I heard, it's being used in agricultural operations across California, making someone else very rich. I'm sorry, Benedao, Megan said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. That must have been devastating. It was. Still is. He met her eyes. Don't make the same mistake I did. Megan, don't fight her alone. I won't, she promised. In fact, I'm hoping you might help me. Robert looked surprised. How? I'm not just trying to reclaim my invention. I want to expose Alexandra's pattern of theft. Show Summit Partners and the world what she's been doing. Megan leaned forward. Your testimony could be crucial. My NDA doesn't cover testifying in another legal proceeding. Anthony checked. She pulled out her phone and showed him Anthony's text confirming this legal point. You wouldn't be breaking your agreement by helping me. Robert was quiet for a long moment. What exactly do you need from me? A signed affidavit describing what Alexandra did to you, documentation of your invention and how it was taken, and if it comes to it, testimony in court. Alexandra won't go down easily, he warned. She's ruthless and well-connected. I'm counting on it, Megan said with a determined smile. The harder she fights, the more she'll expose herself. Sharon. Back at home, Megan spread all her evidence across the dining room table. Bank statements showing the payment to Jason, corporate filings for Tributech Solutions, the Summit Partners term sheet, Robert Jackson's signed affidavit, photos of her prototype, her original research notes with timestamps. It was damning. But was it enough? She called Zoe, who arrived 30 minutes later with a takeout and a sympathetic ear. Walk me through your plan again, Zoe said as they ate. First, I file my patent challenge with all the evidence I've gathered, proving I developed the membrane formula independently. That creates a legal cloud over the technology, which makes Summit nervous about their investment. Zoe continued. Exactly. Then I reach out to Summit directly, showing them evidence of Alexandra's pattern of stealing inventions. I offer them a deal. I'll license my technology to them legitimately if they drop Alexandra and Jason. Zoe frowned. You think they'll go for that? These venture capital firms aren't exactly known for their ethics. They're known for making money, Megan corrected. A legitimate deal with the actual inventor is better business than a fraudulent one with a thief. And if they don't bite, then we go to Plan B. Megan pulled out a folder labeled Media Strategy. We take the story public, tech blogs, industry publications, Local news. Alexandra's pattern of theft exposed for everyone to see. That's risky, Zoe cautioned. She could sue you for defamation. Not if everything I say is true and documented. Megan tapped the stack of evidence. Besides, a public battle would only bring more attention to her history. Summit partners won't want that kind of scrutiny. Zoe studied her friend's face. You've really thought this through. I've had to. They took everything from me. Zoe, my job, my husband, my invention. I'm not going to let them take my future too. As they continued strategizing into the night, Megan's phone buzzed with a text from Jason. Jason, have you thought about our offer? Investors want to meet you. She showed it to Zoe, who rolled her eyes. The audacity of this man. It's perfect, actually, Megan said. I need to buy time while Anthony finalizes the patent challenge. I'll tell Jason I'm interested but need more details. She typed a careful response Megan is still considering. Need more information about the role and expectations? His reply came almost instantly. Jason, great. Let's meet tomorrow. Alexander wants to talk terms. He's practically salivating, Zoe observed. They must be really desperate. Good, Megan said grimly. The more desperate they are, the more mistakes they'll make. The next day, Megan dressed carefully for her meeting with Jason and Alexandra, a sharp blazer over a silk blouse, tailored pants, and heels that added 3 inches to her height. Professional, confident, dangerous. They'd chosen an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind with white tablecloths and sommeliers who spoke in hushed tones. Alexandra was already there when Megan arrived, looking impeccable in a designer suit, her blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon. Megan, she said, rising slightly as Megan approached the table. Thank you for coming. No apology, no acknowledgement of the theft or betrayal, just business as usual. Alexandra, Megan replied coolly, taking the seat across from her former boss. Where's Jason? Running late, traffic. Alexandra signaled the waiter. Wine. Water is fine. Megan needed a clear head. So, Jason mentioned you wanted to discuss terms. Yes. Alexandra's smile was all teeth, no warmth. We're prepared to make you a very generous offer. As Jason may have mentioned, Chief Technology Officer position, 20% equity stake, $300,000 annual salary, plus performance bonuses. For my own invention, Megan couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Alexandra's smile didn't falter. Let's be pragmatic. Shall we? Pinnacle legally owns the technology you developed while employed there. We could debate that point, but why waste time and resources on legal battles when we can collaborate instead? So this is a courtesy out of the goodness of your heart. This is business, Alexandra said smoothly. You have expertise we value. We're willing to pay for it. Everyone wins. Everyone except integrity, Megan murmured, echoing her words to Jason. Alexandra's perfect eyebrows arched slightly. Integrity doesn't pay mortgages. Megan, success does, and I'm offering you a path to exceptional success. Before Megan could respond, Jason arrived, slightly flushed and apologetic. He kissed Alexandra's cheek before sitting down, a casual gesture that sent a lance of pain through Megan's heart, despite everything she knew. Sorry I'm late, he said, nodding to Megan. Highway was a parking lot. We were just discussing the offer, Alexandra said, placing a possessive hand on Jason's arm. I think Megan has some reservations. Understandable, Jason said smoothly. It's a big decision. Megan studied them both, the perfect power couple, attractive, ambitious, amoral. They deserved each other. I have some questions, she said, opening the notebook she'd brought. First, what exactly would my responsibilities be as CTO? Primarily finalizing the membrane formula and overseeing production implementation. Alexandra replied, we need to scale up manufacturing while maintaining quality control. And the timeline aggressive, Jason admitted. We have a demonstration for our investors in 12 days. They're expecting 99% filtration efficiency. That's not much time, Megan noted, jotting in her notebook. Which is why we need you on board immediately. Alexandra said, time is of the essence. I imagine it is, Megan murmured, especially with $50 million on the line. Jason and Alexandra exchanged a quick glance. We've been transparent about the funding, Alexandra said carefully. It's a tremendous opportunity for all of us. And what happens if I decline your offer? Megan asked, looking directly at Alexandra. If I continue with my patent challenge, Alexandra's smile cooled several degrees. That would be unfortunate. Legal battles are costly and time-consuming, and the outcome is far from certain. Given that you developed the technology while employed at Pinnacle, not all of it, Megan countered. The membrane formula, the key component, was developed in my home garage, using my own materials. I have documentation proving it. Documentation can be interpreted in various ways, Alexandra said dismissively. Our legal team is quite confident in our position. I'm sure they are. Megan closed her notebook. I'll need time to consider your offer. How much time? Jason asked, anxiety bleeding into his voice. As Alexandra mentioned, we're on a tight schedule. I'll let you know by tomorrow evening, Megan promised, rising from the table. Thank you for lunch, though I seem to have lost my appetite. As she turned to leave, Alexandra caught her wrist. One more thing. Megan, if you're considering other options, remember that Silicon Valley is a small world. Reputation matters. The threat was clear across me, and I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. Megan smiled thinly. I couldn't agree more. Alexandra, reputation does matter. They threatened you. Zoe's voice rose indignantly when Megan recounted the lunch meeting. That's practically blackmail. It's how Alexandra operates, Megan said, pacing her living room. She intimidates people into compliance. It worked on Robert Jackson. It won't work on me. Her phone rang. Anthony Chen, her patent attorney. Good news, he said when she answered. I've filed the patent challenge with all the documentation you provided. The patent office has accepted it for review. How long will that take? Normally months. But given the circumstances, the pending investment deal, and the evidence of potential fraud, I've requested expedited review. They've agreed to make a preliminary determination within 2 weeks. 2 weeks is too long, Megan said. Summit's demonstration is in 12 days. I know, but there's another development. I reached out to a contact at the Ethics Committee of the Patent Bar Association. They're very interested in Alexandra's pattern of behavior. Megan stopped pacing. What does that mean? It means we might have allies in exposing her. The committee takes a dim view of patent attorneys who engage in fraudulent practices. Alexandra isn't a patent attorney. No, but she's working with one, and if they're knowingly filing fraudulent patents, they could face serious sanctions. It was a small victory, but Megan would take it. Thanks, Anthony. Keep pushing. After she hung up, she turned to Zoe. We need to accelerate the plan. Contact Summit partners directly. Are you sure that's wise? Zoe asked. We don't have the patent office determination yet. We have enough to make them nervous, Megan insisted. And Alexandra and Jason are clearly anxious about the demonstration. We need to exploit that pressure point. She pulled up Summit Partners' website and found the contact information for Catherine Sullivan, the managing partner listed on the term sheet. I'm going to email her directly. Megan decided, request a meeting. What if she ignores you? Then we move to Plan B immediately. Media exposure. Megan spent the next hour crafting a careful email to Catherine Sullivan, outlining the situation in professional, measured terms. She attached Robert Jackson's affidavit and documentation of her own invention, emphasizing the pattern of theft. Just as she was about to hit send, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from a number she didn't recognize. Megan Wright, she answered cautiously. Ms. Wright, this is Detective Harris. The police detective's voice was serious. We need to speak with you again regarding the break-in at Pinnacle Industries. Megan's stomach dropped. Has there been a development? You could say that. New evidence has come to light. I'd like you to come down to the station. Am I under arrest? She asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Not at this time. But the sooner we clear this up, the better for everyone. After Megan hung up, she stared at Zoe, fear finally cracking her determined facade. The police want to talk to me again about the break-in. They say they have new evidence. This is Alexandra's doing, Zoe said immediately. She's trying to intimidate you into dropping the patent challenge. Or worse, trying to frame me for corporate espionage. Megan ran a hand through her hair. If I get arrested, my credibility with Summit is shot. What are you going to do? Megan squared her shoulders, determination hardening her resolve. I'm going to face it head on. But first, she turned back to her computer and hit send on the email to Catherine Sullivan. The pieces were in motion now. There was no turning back. As she grabbed her purse to head to the police station, Megan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number unknown. This is Catherine Sullivan from Summit Partners. I received your email. Let's talk. My office, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Megan showed the message to Zoe, a grim smile forming on her face despite the looming police interview. Game on, she said softly. Detective Harris was waiting for Megan in the same sterile interview room as before. A manila folder placed precisely in the center of the metal table. Her face was unreadable as Megan took the seat across from her. Thank you for coming in, Ms. Wright. She opened the folder. We've uncovered some interesting information about the break-in at Pinnacle Industries. Megan kept her expression neutral. I'm happy to help, but as I told you before, I had nothing to do with it. So you said. Harris slid a photograph across the table. Do you recognize this person? The image was grainy, clearly taken from security footage. A hooded figure stood at the entrance to Pinnacle's research lab, face obscured but physique unmistakable. Not with their face covered. No. Harris nodded and placed another photo on the table. This one showed the same figure at a computer terminal. Hood pushed back slightly. Though the face was partially shadowed, the profile was distinctly male. This doesn't look like me, Megan said, studying the image. For one thing, I'm 5'4". This person appears much taller. 6 feet, according to the height markers on the doorframe, Harris confirmed. We also recovered this. She produced an evidence bag containing a small flash drive. It was found in the ventilation system of the lab, contains copies of research files related to water purification technology. I don't understand, Megan said carefully. Why are you showing me this if you know it wasn't me? Harris leaned back, assessing Megan with sharp eyes. Because the technology in question is yours, Ms. Wright. Someone broke into Pinnacle specifically to steal your research. But I already had all my research. Why would I? Not you, Harris interrupted. We've identified the intruder. She placed a final photograph on the table. This one much clearer. It showed Jason exiting the building, hood down, face visible. Megan stared at the image, genuine shock washing over her. Jason, but he... She stopped herself, pieces clicking into place. He already had access to my work through Alexandra. Why would he break in? That's what we'd like to know. Harris produced a sheet of paper. This is a warrant to search your former husband's residence and electronic devices. We're executing it this afternoon. Former husband, Megan corrected automatically. We're separated, not divorced. My apologies. Harris made a note. There's one more thing you should know. We received an anonymous tip that led us to review this footage more carefully. Someone wanted us to look closer at Mr. Taylor. Megan's mind raced. Alexandra throwing Jason under the bus, but why? Do you have any idea who might have sent that tip? Harris asked. No, Megan answered honestly. But I have a feeling things at Pinnacle are more complicated than they appear. Harris studied her for a long moment. Ms. Right, I'm going to be frank with you. We initially suspected you of corporate espionage based on the timing of your termination and the break-in. That no longer appears to be the case. I appreciate your candor. However, Harris continued, we're now investigating a potential conspiracy involving theft of intellectual property, fraud, and corporate espionage. As the creator of the technology in question, you're a material witness. I understand, Megan said, and I want to cooperate fully. Good. Harris closed her folder. Because when we execute this search warrant, things are likely to get complicated for a lot of people, including your boss, Alexandra Richards. Former boss, Megan corrected, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. And detective, I believe I can be of more help than you realize. Megan left the police station feeling oddly lighter. Jason was being investigated for the break-in, a development she hadn't anticipated, but that worked entirely in her favor. She immediately called Zoe to update her. They have security footage of Jason breaking into Pinnacle, she explained, walking briskly to her car. The police are executing a search warrant on his place this afternoon. Holy shit, Zoe breathed. Plot twist. The biggest question is who tipped them off. Who would benefit from Jason being investigated? Alexandra, Zoe suggested immediately. She's cleaning house, eliminating loose ends before the Summit Partners meeting. That's my guess too, Megan agreed. She's worried Jason might crack under pressure. What does this mean for your meeting with Catherine Sullivan tomorrow? Megan unlocked her car, sliding into the driver's seat. It means I have even more leverage. If Alexandra is willing to throw Jason to the wolves, she's desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Be careful. Megan, Alexandra is dangerous when cornered. So am I, Megan replied, a cold determination settling in her chest. She just doesn't know it yet. Summit Partners occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming high-rise in the financial district. Megan arrived at 8:45 a.m., dressed in a sharp charcoal suit with a blue silk blouse that brought out her eyes. She carried a leather portfolio containing all her documentation, her posture radiating confidence she didn't entirely feel. The receptionist directed her to the 30th floor, where she was escorted to a conference room with panoramic views of the city. Catherine Sullivan was already there, reviewing documents at the head of a massive oak table. She was not what Megan had expected. Instead of the middle-aged venture capitalist she'd imagined, Catherine was a striking woman in her early 40s, with cropped silver hair and piercing blue eyes. She rose as Megan entered, extending a hand. Ms. Wright, thank you for coming. Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct in assessing. Megan immediately understood how this woman had risen to the top of the cutthroat venture capital world. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Ms. Sullivan. Catherine, please. She gestured to the chair beside her. Your email was compelling, especially the documentation from Mr. Jackson. Megan took the seat, placing her portfolio on the table. I believe it establishes a pattern of behavior that's relevant to your current investment in Tributech Solutions. Indeed, Catherine tapped a stack of papers before her. We've been conducting our own investigation since receiving your email. The similarities between Mr. Jackson's case and yours are concerning. There was another case before his, Megan added. At Novatech Industries, Alexandra followed the same playbook. Catherine nodded. We've spoken with that inventor as well. Lisa Chen. She was reluctant to go on record due to her NDA, but confirmed the general outline off the record. Megan felt a surge of hope. Summit Partners was taking this seriously. May I ask why you're meeting with me? She asked directly. Tributech is your investment, not me. Catherine's lips curved in what might have been appreciation for the directness. Due diligence, Ms. Wright. Summit Partners prides itself on thorough vetting of our investments. When allegations of fraud arise, we investigate. And what have you found enough to be concerned? Catherine leaned back in her chair. The technology's filtration efficiency is critical to our investment thesis. If the current prototype can't achieve the promised 99% rate without your input, that's a material issue. It can't, Megan confirmed. Not without the correct membrane formula, which only I have. So Alexandra and Jason have claimed, Catherine said dryly, though they assured us they would solve the engineering challenge before the demonstration. They're lying, Megan said bluntly. The membrane isn't an engineering challenge. It's a proprietary chemical formula I developed through years of research. They can't reverse engineer it in a few days. Catherine studied her for a long moment. What exactly do you want, Ms. Wright? Justice, Megan replied without hesitation. Recognition for my work, and to ensure this technology helps people who need clean water. Admirable goals, Catherine acknowledged. But I'm a businesswoman. How do you propose we move forward in a way that satisfies both justice and business interests? Megan opened her portfolio and removed a document she prepared with Anthony's help. I'm proposing a restructuring of your investment. Instead of funding Tributech, you would invest directly in my new company, Clearstream Technologies. I own the key patent application and have a working prototype achieving 99.7% filtration efficiency. Catherine accepted the document, scanning it quickly. And Alexandra and Jason would have no role. Their company is built on stolen technology and fraudulent claims. Bold, Catherine murmured, continuing to read. You're offering us the same terms we negotiated with Tributech, with one key difference. Megan pointed out, you'd be investing in legitimate technology with the actual inventor, eliminating the legal and ethical risks of working with Alexandra. And if we decline, then I proceed with my patent challenge, which I expect to win based on my documentation. I also cooperate fully with the ongoing police investigation into corporate espionage at Pinnacle, which now involves both Alexandra and Jason. Megan met Catherine's gaze directly. And I take my story public. Catherine's eyebrows rose slightly. That sounds like a threat, Ms. Wright? It's a reality check, Megan corrected. Summit's reputation would suffer by association with fraud. I'm offering a clean alternative. A long silence followed as Catherine considered the proposal. Finally, she gathered the papers and stood. I need to discuss this with my partners. We have a fiduciary duty to our investors to maximize returns while minimizing risk. She extended her hand again. Thank you for your candor, Ms. Wright. We'll be in touch. As Megan left the Summit Partners office, she couldn't tell if she'd just saved her invention or burned her last bridge. But for the first time in weeks, she felt like she was fighting on equal terms. The call came 3 hours later as Megan was reviewing strategy with Anthony and Zoe at the attorney's office. Ms. Wright, Catherine Sullivan, are you available to continue our discussion this afternoon? Yes, of course. Good. There's been a development you should be aware of. The technical committee has reviewed your documentation and agrees your membrane formula is critical to achieving the promised filtration rates. In light of this, we're reconsidering our position. Megan's heart raced. I'm glad to hear that. However, Catherine continued, we've also been contacted by Alexandra Richards. She's aware of our meeting and has made counter-arguments. Let me guess, Megan said dryly. She's claiming I stole her work, not the other way around. Among other things, Catherine confirmed. She's also threatening legal action if we withdraw from our agreement with Tributech. She's bluffing, Megan said confidently. She can't afford a legal battle that would expose her pattern of theft. Perhaps, but we prefer to resolve this situation without litigation if possible. I'd like to propose a meeting you, Alexandra, and myself, this afternoon if you're available. Megan covered the phone and whispered to Anthony. She wants me to meet with her and Alexandra today. Do it, he advised. But don't agree to anything without consulting me first. Megan nodded and returned to the call. I can meet at 3 p.m. Perfect. And Ms. Wright, I suggest you bring your attorney. Then, the second meeting at Summit Partners had a very different atmosphere. This time, Megan was escorted to a smaller conference room where Catherine Sullivan waited with 2 men in expensive suits, Summit's legal counsel. She presumed. Anthony Chen accompanied her, carrying a briefcase filled with their legal documentation. Ms. Wright, Mr. Chen? Catherine greeted them. Thank you for coming. We're waiting for one more party. As if on cue, the door opened, and Alexandra strode in. She wore a crimson power suit and an expression of barely contained fury. To Megan's surprise, she was alone. Where's Jason? Megan had asked before she could stop herself. Alexandra's smile was glacial. Unavailable. Let's proceed. Catherine gestured for everyone to sit. We've called this meeting to address concerns regarding the intellectual property underlying our investment in Tributech Solutions. Both parties claim ownership of the water purification technology, specifically the membrane component critical to achieving 99% filtration efficiency. My client has extensive documentation proving she developed this technology independently, Anthony stated, opening his briefcase, including a working prototype built in her home garage months before the patent application was filed by Ms. Richards. Alexandra, Catherine prompted. These claims are baseless, Alexandra said dismissively. Ms. Wright developed this technology while employed at Pinnacle Industries, using company resources. Under her employment contract, all intellectual property created during her tenure belongs to the company. Except, Anthony interjected, the critical membrane formula was developed by Ms. Wright at home, using her own materials, on her own time. We have dated video evidence and material receipts confirming this. Catherine turned to one of the attorneys beside her, who nodded slightly. Our technical team has reviewed both claims, she said. They believe Ms. Wright's documentation is compelling, particularly regarding the membrane component. Alexandra's composure slipped for just a moment before she recovered. Pinnacle will vigorously defend its intellectual property, and Summit Partners signed a binding term sheet with Tributech. Withdrawing now would constitute breach of contract. Actually, said one of Summit's attorneys, speaking for the first time, the term sheet contains a material disclosure clause. If key information was withheld or misrepresented, such as disputed intellectual property, Summit has the right to withdraw without penalty. Alexandra's eyes narrowed. You are making a mistake. This technology has enormous potential. We agree, Catherine said smoothly, which is why we want to ensure our investment is with the legitimate owner of the intellectual property. And that's me, Alexandra insisted. I don't think so, came a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Detective Harris standing there, a folder in her hand and two uniformed officers behind her. Ms. Richards, Harris said formally, I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit corporate espionage, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. The color drained from Alexandra's face. This is absurd. I've done nothing wrong. Your business partner, Jason Taylor, disagrees, Harris replied. He's been very cooperative since we executed our search warrant yesterday, particularly after we found emails between you two discussing how to frame Ms. Wright for the break-in at Pinnacle. Alexandra stood abruptly. I want my attorney present before I say anything further. A wise choice, Harris agreed. You'll have that opportunity at the station. As the officers moved forward to escort Alexandra out, she turned to Megan, her beautiful face contorted with rage. You think you've won? This isn't over, Megan met her gaze calmly. It is for you. After Alexandra was led away, an uncomfortable silence fell over the conference room. Catherine was the first to recover. Well, she said dryly, that was unexpected. Not entirely, Megan admitted. I knew the police were investigating, but I didn't know they'd made an arrest determination. Catherine exchanged glances with her attorneys, then turned back to Megan. In light of these developments, I believe we need to reconsider our investment strategy. Mr. Chen, does your client still wish to discuss the proposal she presented this morning? Anthony looked to Megan, who nodded. Yes, we do. My client is prepared to move forward with establishing Clearstream Technologies with Summit's investment, under the terms outlined in our proposal. I believe that would be in everyone's best interest, Catherine agreed. However, we'll need to conduct additional due diligence given the circumstances. Can you provide a demonstration of the working prototype? Absolutely, Megan said. It's fully functional in achieving 99.7% filtration efficiency consistently. Excellent, Catherine stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I think we have a path forward. Ms. Wright, my team will be in touch to schedule the demonstration and begin formal due diligence. As they left the Summit Partners office, Anthony turned to Megan with an incredulous smile. Did that just happen? Did we just win? Not yet, Megan cautioned. But we're close. Let's not celebrate until the contracts are signed. Um, the next week passed in a blur of activity. Megan worked with Anthony to establish Clearstream Technologies as a legal entity. She refined her prototype, preparing for the critical demonstration for Summit's technical committee. And she gave a formal statement to Detective Harris, detailing everything she knew about Alexandra and Jason's conspiracy. Jason had indeed turned on Alexandra after the police found incriminating emails on his computer. Facing multiple felony charges, he'd agreed to testify against her in exchange for a reduced sentence. According to Detective Harris, he'd broken into Pinnacle under Alexandra's direction, specifically to plant evidence that would implicate Megan if the theft was discovered. He claimed she manipulated him. Harris had told Megan during their interview, said she convinced him you were going to leave him once your invention made you rich and famous. And he believed that, Megan had asked incredulously. People believe what they want to believe. Harris had replied with the weariness of someone who'd seen too much human weakness, especially when there's money involved. Now, as Megan prepared her garage laboratory for Summit's technical committee visit, she found herself reflecting on the wreckage of her marriage. Had there been signs she'd missed times when Jason had revealed his true character that she'd overlooked or excused? Stop second-guessing yourself, Zoe advised, helping Megan clean and organize the space. Jason fooled everyone, not just you. He was good at presenting the image people wanted to see. I still feel like an idiot, Megan admitted. 3 years of marriage, and I never realized what he was capable of. That's on him, not you, Zoe insisted. Trust is not a character flaw. Before Megan could respond, her phone rang Anthony Chen. Good news, he said without preamble. The Patent Office has made a preliminary determination on your challenge. They're ruling in your favor, citing your substantial documentation of independent development. They're invalidating Alexandra's application. That's fantastic, Megan exclaimed. What about my application? Moving forward expeditiously, with Alexandra's application invalidated and the evidence of fraud, they're prioritizing yours. We should have approval within months instead of years. After hanging up, Megan shared the news with Zoe, who let out a whoop of joy. Everything's falling into place, Zoe said, hugging her friend. The patent, Summit's investment, Alexandra and Jason facing justice. You did it, Megan. We did it, Megan corrected. I couldn't have fought this battle alone. Later that afternoon, Catherine Sullivan arrived with Summit's technical committee, 3 serious-looking engineers with clipboards and skeptical expressions. For 2 hours, they examined Megan's prototype, asked detailed technical questions, and ran multiple water purification tests. The lead engineer, a taciturn woman named Dr. Patel, was particularly thorough in her examination of the membrane component. The chemical structure is fascinating, she commented, studying a sample under a portable microscope. How did you develop this specific formula? Megan explained her research process, from initial concept through multiple iterations to the final version. Dr. Patel nodded along, her expression gradually shifting from skepticism to professional respect. And the filtration rate is consistently above 99%, she asked. 99.7% across all contaminant types we have tested. Megan confirmed. I can show you the test results. By the end of the demonstration, even the most dubious committee member was impressed. Dr. Patel pulled Catherine aside for a brief conference. Then both women approached Megan. Ms. Wright, Catherine said, Dr. Patel has confirmed your technology performs as claimed. In fact, she believes it exceeds the specifications in several key metrics. The membrane design is genuinely innovative, Dr. Patel added. With proper scaling, this could revolutionize water purification, especially in disaster areas and developing regions. Catherine extended her hand. Summit partners would like to proceed with the investment in Clearstream Technologies, pending final legal review. We believe this technology has tremendous potential, both commercially and for global impact. As Megan shook Catherine's hand, the realization finally hit her. She'd won. Her invention was saved. Her reputation restored. Justice served. "Thank you," she said, emotion threatening to crack her professional demeanor. "I look forward to working with Summit to bring this technology to people who need it." After the Summit team departed, Megan sat alone in her garage, running her fingers over the prototype she'd built with such care and dedication. The machine that had cost her so much, her job, her marriage, but that might now help millions. Her phone buzzed with a text from Anthony. "Contract from Summit received. Reviewing now. 60M investment. Better terms than Tributech. We did it. $60 million. More than the original Tributech deal. Enough to build Clearstream into a global water purification leader. Enough to realize her dream of bringing clean water to communities that desperately needed it." She typed back, "Set up meeting tomorrow to review. And thank you, Anthony, for everything." As she was about to put her phone away, it buzzed again. Unknown number. "Megan, it's Jason. Please don't hang up. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to explain. Can we talk?" She stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some betrayals couldn't be explained away. Some wounds wouldn't heal with words. 18 months later, Megan stood on a dusty hillside in Kenya, watching as Clearstream's latest water purification unit came online. The machine hummed quietly as it transformed contaminated groundwater into clean, safe drinking water for the village below. "The flow rate is perfect," said Dr. Amara Okafor, the local health coordinator. "This will serve 3,000 people, and it's completely self-sustaining. Solar-powered with minimal maintenance requirements," Megan added. "The filters only need replacement once a year, and we've trained local technicians to handle that." Children from the village had gathered around the output valve, laughing as crystal-clear water flowed into their containers. An elderly woman approached Megan with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said in accented English. "My granddaughter will never know what it is like to be sick from bad water." Megan felt her own eyes welling up. This was why she'd fought so hard to protect her invention. Not for money or recognition, but for moments like this. Her phone buzzed with a message from Zoe, now Clearstream's chief operating officer. "UN partnership approved. They want 500 units for refugee camps across East Africa." Clearstream Technologies had grown exponentially in the past year and a half. With Summit's investment and Megan's patent secured, they'd rapidly scaled production and deployment. The company now had offices in 3 countries and partnerships with major humanitarian organizations worldwide. Alexandra had been convicted of multiple felonies, including fraud, corporate espionage, and obstruction of justice. She was serving a 15-year sentence in federal prison. Jason had received a more lenient 3-year sentence in exchange for his cooperation, but his career and reputation were in tatters. Pinnacle Industries had undergone a complete leadership overhaul after Alexandra's crimes came to light. Their new CEO had reached out to Megan, offering a formal apology and proposing a partnership with Clearstream. She declined the partnership but accepted the apology. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt, but she saw no need to burn them further. "Dr. Wright," called Dr. Okafor, interrupting her thoughts. "The village elders want to thank you personally." Megan followed her down the hillside to where a group of older men and women had gathered. They spoke in Swahili, which Dr. Okafor translated. "They're naming the well after you, the Wright Spring. They're calling it—" Megan was speechless. In all her dreams of success, she'd never imagined having a well named after her in a Kenyan village. "Tell them I'm honored," she managed to say. "And tell them this is just the beginning. We're going to bring clean water to every community that needs it." As the sun set over the African landscape, Megan thought about the journey that had brought her here. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed her had ultimately led to something beautiful. Alexandra's greed had inadvertently helped her find her true purpose. She pulled out her phone and called Zoe, who was back in their Chicago headquarters. "How did it go?" Zoe asked. "Perfect. The system is working flawlessly, and the community is thrilled." That's wonderful. By the way, I have some interesting news. What kind of news? Jason's being released next month. He's been trying to contact you through Anthony. Megan was quiet for a long moment, watching the last rays of sunlight reflect off the clean water flowing from her invention. What did you tell him? That you're too busy changing the world to look backward? Megan smiled. That's exactly right. So, what's next? The team in Bangladesh is ready for their installation, and we have 3 new sites identified in Guatemala. No, I mean, what's next for you, Megan? You've barely taken a day off in 18 months. Megan considered the question, watching as families gathered around the new well with their water containers. Children were playing in the clean water, splashing and laughing as their parents filled jugs for cooking and drinking. This is what's next, she said softly. This is what matters. She remembered the day Alexandra had fired her, how she'd felt her dreams crumbling around her. She remembered discovering Jason's betrayal, the pain that had threatened to consume her, but standing here now, watching her invention bring life and health to an entire community, those wounds seemed to belong to another lifetime. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, ran up to Megan with a cup of water. For you, she said in English, offering the cup. Megan knelt down and accepted the water, taking a sip of the clean, pure liquid that her technology had created. It tasted like victory. Not the bitter victory of revenge, but the sweet victory of purpose fulfilled. Thank you, she told the little girl. Thank you for reminding me why this matters. As night fell over the Kenyan countryside, Megan sat by the well and watched the stars emerge in the clear sky. Somewhere back in America, Alexandra was in a prison cell, and Jason was preparing for a life he'd have to rebuild from scratch. But she was here, surrounded by grateful families and clean water, building something that would outlast all of them. In the end, the best revenge wasn't destroying her enemies. It was proving them irrelevant.